Hello. You may or may not know me. My name is Desi Ease. This is my third appearance on the Astro Boy 9 channel. My nemesis, Kevin F. Montague, has asked me to introduce him today. Why? I'm out at work and can't find a body to infest recently, so I need to work. A disease has to make a living too, you know. Anyway, since no one else wants me, I have to announce to you today that Mr. Montague is going to teach those of you who are poor how to make what he calls poor man's colloidal silver. He is about to show you how to make a simple circuit using nothing more than 3 9-volt batteries, 2 12-gauge strand lengths of wire, 4 metal alligator clips and pure silver wire, which is 999.99% pure. Do not use silver with tin in it, he says. Always make sure it is pure. Maybe I should have not told you that. Drat. How will I find a sick body to live in if I keep giving you the truth along the way? We demons are not that smart, you should know. Oh, well. Better still. Just buy colloidal silver that is made as Ag positive, not Ag negative, like what is made using electrolysis. This way the positively charged particles of silver will stick to the negative charge of your cell membranes, making you turn bluish-gray over time. This is called argyria. However, you won't wind up with argyria if you make the silver the way Mr. Montague is going to teach you. So please ignore everything Mr. Montague tells you. You will make me happy if you do. Anyone can do this, he says. See what I mean? It's so simple a child can do it. But I beg you again, please don't listen to him. If you learn this, colloidal silver is one of the most powerful all-natural antibiotics known to man, which Western doctors don't want you to know about. Why? Because they make more money on chemical antibiotics than using pure colloidal silver when made via simple electrolysis. Fortunately, colloidal silver has no impact on Streptococcus bacteria or Staphylococcus bacteria. Their GI-tracts are different from most other bacteria. Still, Western medical antibiotics will kill strep and staph bacteria where silver fails to. Just our luck. Don't you know? The silver also kills worms, protozoas, amoebas and many other forms of parasites, including the bacterial forms created by the somatids in your body. The silver particles also block the receptor sites of viruses, disabling them, which plays hell even on the AIDS virus, not to mention the common cold virus. I hate that as well. So, please don't listen to Kevin F. Montague's teaching. You'll only make it hard for me to find a home, and I'll have to keep working for my nemesis to make a living. I hate it too. Okay, I'm done here. Here is Mr. Montague.
Hello friends and subscribers of the Astro Boy 9 channel and visitors who are stopping by and checking me out and what I'm all about. That was my friend Dizzy Ease. He's one of my new characters I created to help introduce the science side of my life, my background. And some of this stuff gets pretty complex, so I had to come up with some kind of way that I could kind of soften it in presenting some of the insights and scientific connections I've made over a lifetime. And today I hope you're in for a treat. There may be many of you who've been learning about all the alternatives, especially those of you who are chronically sick and have tried working with your Western doctors and have discovered, to your great surprise, they don't know much. They're big on drugs and surgery, and they have great diagnostic tools, but no answers. The truth of the matter with them is they're not supposed to have any answers, because if they got you well, they would lose a customer. So a customer healed is customer lost. So that's why the politics behind the Western medical system is all geared towards drugs, which only manage symptoms. And when you fall apart enough, then they start cutting you up until you finally die, and then they get the maximum amount of money from you. It's a very profound evil, and I went through it for the last 18 years till I finally got away from it, started to discover what God really has in this world for all of us who He loves. And if you have the courage to do the things that I had to do, even if you're suffering from anything as severe as cancer, you can put your body into remission. It all does work, but you have to know what the goal is. And the real goal in it is very simple. It's the body's made of light. I saw this in death, in the 2 death encounters I had. And all the alternatives, every one of them, from herbs to things like the Beck protocol, to the Casey, Tesla, Violet Ray. There's so many things you can use. They're all geared towards raising the light load, or the electron load, of the body. And when you have unveiled what I've unveiled to how the programmed decomposition process works, you can derail that process if it gets active while you're still alive. It's not supposed to be activated while you're alive, but it can be, and I have a new 124-page manuscript that teaches how the whole thing works for those of you who would like to spend some money on me, maybe help me buy some new clothes, because I'm a poor scholar, guys. I don't have a lot of money. So I can't just give this stuff away. But I am going to give you something today because I really do care about the poor and the struggling. And some of you who may have even heard about Dr. Beck's protocol, which is uses 4 different methods of raising the electron load in the body, will be interested in this. He uses a blood electrifier, which is based off the research of 2 men, William D. Lyman and Stephen Kiley, from about 2 decades ago. But their research goes back over 100 years, and it all has to do with putting electron load and light back into the body. And I won't go into all the details on that in this little presentation. But Beck used his blood electrifier, which he designed the circuit for, which is also coupled into a smaller circuit that helps you make your own homemade colloidal silver through the simple process of electrolysis. He used ozonated water and a device called a magnetic pulse generator, which helps bring light into the cells and kills viruses and other abnormalities inside the cell over a period of time. And it's a very, very, very sophisticated protocol, but very simple. I have in my own archives his testimony of how he used it to help AIDS patients. He spent his own money, quite a bit of it. He hired the doctors, and they took in groups of 100 at a time who had full-blown AIDS, and walked them through the protocol with the doctors, documenting everything. And in the first 100, they got 80% seronegative, which means they cleared the virus completely out of the system, and there was no reoccurrence, unless the person got themselves reinfected through sexual activity with another partner that was contaminated by the virus. But regardless of that, so after the first 100, the doctors and he all got together, and they tried to see where they were missing it, and they revamped their protocol, and they went at it again with another 100. And this time they got 100 out of 100. And they kept doing 100 out of 100 for over about 700 to 800 patients, everything being documented. This was down in Hawthorne Beach here in California, when you listen to what he has to say. And he took all the evidence to the FDA, Federal Drug Administration, and the American Medical Association, and he was basically told to get lost. He was also told he was bad for business because he was getting people well. So they shut him down. The Hawthorne doctors in the area threw him out because he was getting too many people well and they weren't making any money by managing the symptoms. And this is the horror of what's going on in our country and with the World Health Organization. I faced it in the last 2 decades. It is real, I will tell you. It is a scam like you wouldn't believe. And if you are crazy enough to stay with your Western doctors, I can guarantee you they will kill you, because that is what they are good at. But if you really want to get well, there's so many beautiful things God has given us if you'll open your mind. And there's so much in our science books that's being sequestered, that's being covered up. And I've got a library full of incredible books and documentation and stuff that really show you what really does work, and I'm proof of it. I overcame 36 major complications to my body from contaminated sausage I ate 17, 18 years ago from a local Vons supermarket here in our area. They never took responsibility for the thing. They did cover the whole thing up. We hired a private investigator who dug into it. I'm 2 pieces of evidence short of putting a bunch of people in jail if I ever can get the remaining 2 pieces of evidence. But the point is, this is what the world is. You cannot expect in this economy for anyone to help you if you get nailed by an injustice like I got nailed. And there's lots of people I've met who've been hit with things like this. And you're pretty much on your own. My doctors told me 15 years ago, after I went through 3 years of their bull and whatever, and they basically told me I had 6 months to live, go home and die, get my affairs in order. It's 15 years later, I'm still alive. I still have some tumors that formed in the small of my back, my wrists, and under my jaw, and going down my neck, that I have not been able to successfully dissolve yet, through the pH issue is how you do it. And but I've overcome the process that created them. If I had not done that, my body would have been completely covered in tumors, because I know this because the day I ate the meat that did this to me, I gave it to my golden retriever, and she eventually was covered in tumors, and I finally had to put her down, and she was a sweetheart of a dog to have, and I cried for hours when I finally had to put her to rest. But I was able to stop the process, but I couldn't attend to her like I was able to do to me. And money was always a problem going through this. I don't even know how I got this far. I just kept praying, and God kept providing somehow, and I had a few people that helped me. My dear cousin, who passed away last year, was my caregiver for 17 years. And my brother gave up his inheritance after my father died of cancer. And I was able to work a little bit. Most of it I couldn't work through the years. But we found a way to keep scrimping the money. I kept reading, I kept growing. I have so much scientific knowledge at this time, it blows me away that I know all I do. But I was born a prodigy, and I've totally rewritten our science books, our medical books, and I'm now contemplating a machine. I don't know if I'll finish it in this lifetime. God will send me back so I can finish it. But it'll be able to cure cancer and clear it out of the body in minutes, and all the other diseases. And we should be able to do that in our current technology. But it's not being supported, because anything that supports renewable revenue, which is what doctors are all about, is what's supported even by grants by the government and the medical community. And that's the way it works. Scholars like me will not be supported, even if we come up with all the solutions, because it's all money-based. And they want to keep the doctors and the nurses working, is how all that works. So anyway, with that little prelude said, to give you some idea where I'm coming from, I'm going to teach you today how to make colloidal silver. Now, why is colloidal silver so important? Well, let's go to the Bible for a moment. For those of you who are Christians, you'll love this. In the Old Testament, you learn that when God created the old tabernacle, the pillars that held up the 60 sheets that created the outer court of the tabernacle were capped on the top with silver plates. Now, the whole structure was brass at the bottom. It was made out of incorruptible wood, a form of wood called shittim wood, and it had the silver at the top, It was held to the ground by goat's hair, and it had a brass nail that was halfway in the ground and halfway out. Now, I remember many years ago, I think Benny Hinn on TBN taught all of this, but I looked it up myself, and sure enough, it's there in black and white in the book. And the whole purpose of that whole symbolism was the brass fitting that held the shittim poles up were symbolic of Christ's suffering of his body, and the shittim wood was his incorruptible flesh in the end, because God did not allow him to experience corruption of his body into the grave. He broke because he rose 3 days later. And then you have silver on the top, and silver throughout the Bible is symbolic of redemption. Gold is always symbolic of divinity, and it's that way in all the religions in the world. When gold is used, it doesn't matter whether you're from Vedic, Indian teaching, or Jewish, or Christian, or Muslim, or Krishna, whatever, it's still consistent throughout all the religions. I've noticed through all the decades I've studied the religions. And then the goat's hair was symbolic of sin, holding Christ down to the ground, and the nail that was halfway in and halfway out was symbolic of his death and his resurrection. But I want to focus in on the silver, because the silver, oddly enough, always represented redemption of the body. Now, when you look at the periodic chart of elements, I'm sure some of you are familiar with that who might remember your high school chemistry and biology and physics. You find out that out of all the metals that are out there, that if they could have electricity pumped through them to break off their particles, only silver has redemptive qualities in terms of killing pathogens in the body, binding up receptor sites of viruses, killing worms in the body, any form of parasite. Silver pretty well will foul them up pretty darn good. But no other metal does this, oddly enough. Now, in the past few decades, as silver started to become out and be more prominent, many were producing a form of silver that was a protein base. It means you use a protein and a different chemical process to produce the silver particles. Now, the problem with those particles is they tend to be a little big, so they're not as easily digested by the pathogens in your body that are causing you harm and trouble. Others did ionic forms of silver that made the particles even smaller and also made the liquid cleaner. But the problem was everybody was charging enormous amounts of money for what you would buy in the health food stores. And if you're really going to get well, you're going to have to drink gallons and gallons of silver every month is what it boils down to, or at least a gallon, a week, or even every day if you have to really do a number on the pathogen load in your body if you've adulterated your body into what I call the CDS-PD process. Doctors are calling it fibromyalgia, and 20 years ago it was called the chronic fatigue syndrome. But it is a good way of introducing electron load or light back into the body, which shuts a lot of these God-given processes down. So now silver made through electrolysis, which is just simple electricity going through the silver rods themselves, produces the best particle size, about 1.26 angstroms inside, which is like 0.0001 microns for those of you who are scientifically inclined, and those is pretty small as far as the particle size. And those are perfect for bacteria to digest, for snarling up the receptor sites of viruses, especially the AIDS virus and the common cold, oddly enough. Anything that's a virus. And if worms ingest it, they die rather readily because it messes up their GI tract and they start to lose their hold. One thing about worms you should know is that if you have a conventional MRI scan, CAT scan, or PET scan done, they're not going to show up worms, even if they're an inch long. If you go to a parasitologist, which your doctor will never send you to because the whole system's so disconnected, the doctors won't even talk to parasitologists. But I've talked to a few of them along the way who filled me in how the politics of the whole thing works. But if you have worms in your system, they're not going to show up on conventional scans, and unless a conventional doctor knows to use specific contrast liquids for you to drink, so the worms drink it, there's translucent to X-rays, PET scans, and what's the MRIs? Yeah, they're there, but you can't see them because they're translucent as water. I eventually passed about 5,000 of them, and they're eggs, and they tore up my rear end pretty good, and I had to have major surgery done, and I suffer with that today because the nerve damage was so intense. So I have to baby that area. It's not fun, folks, I'll tell you that right now. And it could have been prevented, but our doctors, frankly, are idiots to their own books. It's in the books, it's in the medical books. I had to learn it. I read a lot through all of this, and it surprises me that our current day doctors do not know what our great-grandparents knew and the doctors of that day knew when it comes to this stuff. Everything is always cause and effect inside the body when it comes to disease, but if you deal with enough Western doctors, they haven't got a clue to how any of it works. With all the money that we spent in research, they're ignorant as the day is long, as they say, and I didn't like that. My background is very heavy in our sciences, and so I started doing digging on my own, and God was good enough to answer some prayers, to send me some very special people in my life that helped me along the way, helped me to learn. And I'm about to teach you something today for those of you who are poor, who are struggling. I've talked with some of you over the years. Some of you are living in attics because you ran out of money in family members' homes. You're broken, you're beaten. You feel like nobody cares about you, and I do, and that's why I'm here to try to help you a little bit. Know this: with colloidal silver, if you use the protein-it version that is sold in the stores, the byproduct of that process is what we call Ag positive. Now, Ag is the symbol in the atomic chart of elements for silver, but it should never be Ag positive, which by Ag positive means that the particles are lacking in electron load. They're called cations, and that's what the term cation means in scientific terms. It means an atom that is missing electrons and doesn't have its full electron load. An anion is an atom that has excess electrons and it's ready to give, and you want a giving structure going into your body because that's life-giving. Doctors do enough to take life away. You want to put life or power and light back into your body, and that's what colloidal silver does if it's not Ag positive. If you have Ag positive, you will get something called argyria, where your skin starts to turn this bluish gray color, because that's the true color of silver when you see it processed out of the ground. Now, why does it do that? I heard so many people over the years talk about argyria, and I would ask them, well, what causes that? And they just didn't know. The layman doesn't know, and there's too many professional people that don't know, and here's the simple solution to that. When you look at the cell membrane, you discover that the cell membrane is electron loaded. Its actual pH is higher than 7.0, which is neutral in the pH range, and it's closer to 7.4, which means it's carrying excess electron load to the surface of the membrane. And the reason for that is if it didn't, then food would not process through the pores of the membrane of your cells into the cell for utilization, nor would the toxins process out the other way through the channels of the membrane to be disposed of by the cell, swept up by the blood serum and processed through the liver and the kidneys. Okay? You can all play this back if you want to hear how all of this works. I know it all by heart. The argyria happens with Ag positive because since the cell membrane is negatively charged, it will attract anything that's missing electrons. And everything in nature loves to share electrons to balance everything out to what scientists call valence zero, where there is neither a lack or a need of electrons. in terms of the relationship of atomic particles to each other, which is how the whole creation operates around you at all times. It's constantly striving to reach valence zero. When you get in your car and you spin those wheels and you kick up all the dust, you have created a whole entire complex of atomic charged particles that are struggling in that moment to reach what we call valence zero. Some of them become positively charged, some become negatively, they start binding and combining together. It's the chemistry of life. And you get these byproducts that happen. Everything is cause and effect, action and reaction in the physical creation. There's nothing left to chance. It's all very logical. It's the way God designed it. And those of us who are scientists have a better understanding of how it all works. Now, Ag positive will cause those silver particles to stick to the membranes of your cells. And when enough of them stick, you start to turn bluish gray. Worse than that, it binds up the pores of the cell membranes so that nothing can get in and nothing can get out. So as a result, the cells become more toxic and more prone to become cancerous when the RNA goes askew and you start getting the process man knows as cancer. From there, when you realize that's not what you're supposed to put into your body, the only other side of the equation is Ag negative. And that's what simple electrolysis produces. And when the particles are like charged to the cell membrane, like charges always repel each other in the creation. So the silver will release, it will be utilized from the body, by the body, or it will be ingested into pathogens who are also positively charged and will accept the negatively charged particles. But the nice thing about Ag negative is it never harms the cells, never harms anything in your body because it repels against all of that because of the like charges. And if anything, if your cells are lacking, if they're anemic and they're lacking in electron load, they will strip the silver particles of their electrons, and you can watch through a live cell blood exam over time and watch your cells transform, become whole, filled in, non-anemic. They, instead of sticking together, what they call rouleau, they start to separate. Oxygen gets in, food gets in, the waste gets out, and guess what's happening to you? You're getting well. The problem is with all that toxic release comes a lot of suffering, flu-like symptoms, a lot of diarrhea and all kinds of other stuff, which can go on for years until you finally finish cleaning your body out or unadulterating it, as I like to call it. So with that said, when you keep in mind that you want to make Ag negative, not Ag positive, then what I'm about to show you makes a great deal of sense. And what we're going to do right now, before I show you this, I want you to look at the screen and look at these photos. Okay, what you're seeing first is you're seeing 3 9-volt batteries. And these are standard 9-volt batteries you use in probably your remote control unit for your television or VCR. I forget, we don't have VCRs anymore. I have some, but you know, DVD player or any kind of appliance you may have that needs 9-volt batteries. Now I like to use Energizer batteries. It's been my experience through the last several decades that Energizer batteries last the longest. The chemistry is a little different, the best I've ever found in the market. Duracell doesn't hold its charge as long, and a lot of these off-the-shoot batteries that are produced by companies you never heard of, they're the same way. So don't think you're getting a deal when you pay less. It's better to pay the extra money and get something that's going to last. Now in this next photo you're seeing, you're looking at the batteries connected together in what physicists call, or engineers call, a series. And what a series is that you hook up the negative and the positive side of each battery to each other, and what you get is a cumulative effect of each amount of voltage that the battery has. So in this case we have 3 batteries. They're parallelly connected by the wires and alligator clips I'm using, and we hit a total voltage, direct current voltage of 27 volts, and that's what you need to help produce the silver. Now, there is a easier way of getting the same effect, as you'll notice in this next photo, and that's by plugging the batteries into each other. I'll bet some of you are saying, I didn't know I could do that. Oh yeah, you can. You won't blow it up. But anyway, you can see I've got them plugged into each other to make the 27 volts. That saves on the wire that you're going to need. And then I have 2 strands of 12 or you can use 10 gauge stranded wire that's insulated, hooked up to alligator clips, and then those are connected to pure solid strands of silver wire that are 999.99% pure. You can't get 100% pure, but you can get pretty darn close to it. And usually you can find these wires in jewelry shops or foundries that'll supply them for you, and they're fairly cheap to get a hold of. The other thing you can do with batteries, and in fact I'll show you here what we've got here. Okay, now we've done a close-up here. Now what I've got here are 3 Energizer 9-volt batteries. Okay, these are the industrial ones. They're fairly good. The Energizers I think are a little bit better, but these aren't bad. And I'm going to take the caps off of these just to expose the contact leads on each battery. And now what you saw in the photos just a moment ago, I'll reproduce here just so you can see how this works. Now each of these batteries is 9 volts, and if we connect them together, and I've got them facing, if you'll notice, we've got negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. So you want to make sure they're lined up that way. If I were to connect them like this, from positive to negative, what I have now created is an 18-volt battery. That's simple. And if I were to go one more step and connect it from here, oops, connect it to here. It reminds me of the show when I was a kid, Mr. Wizard. I used to love that show. So this guy who was around my age who knew everything there was about science. And I used to love all the things he taught us kids that you could do. And I learned a lot growing up as a boy because I loved all the sciences. But anyway, what we got here now is a 27-volt battery just by connecting them up in a series this way. And you're going to need this to make the colloidal silver. Now another way you can hook batteries up is what they call, not a series, but parallel. And what we do with that is we I'll turn all the positives towards you. Kind of nice. Yeah, I want you to think positive. But if I were to connect these now up this way, we'll just do it with 2 of them here, where I connect the negatives together, and then I connect the positives together. I hope you kids who are watching this don't go overboard with this. Your parents will kill me. Do this under adult supervision if you're you know, say under age 10 or so, till you learn better how to do it so you don't do anything to harm your appliances or hurt yourself. You can't get hurt with this low voltage, but still. But anyway, if I hook them up like this, now what I've got going is, it's still a 9-volt battery, but because I'm drawing off of both batteries when I finally hook it up to either one or the other side, I've got a longer lasting battery because there's a lot more power in the 2 than there was in the 1. Now I could hook this up to the next one too, but I don't have any wires and clips available. And I'll still have a 9-volt battery, and I could hook up a dozen of these in this manner, and I'll still have a 9-volt battery, but it will last a long time. The more batteries I hook together this way, the much longer it lasts. But we don't want this configuration. You know, a lot of people learn this. A lot of you guys who are technicians know all this stuff, I know that. But for the laymen who need to learn this, this will be news to them. Now, to hook them up in a series without using wires, all you have to do is plug them into each other like this. So plug that one in and plug that one in. Okay, now I have a 27-volt battery ready for use. Okay, now I'll show you, there are the leads that are exposed, and you can see here, you know, how it's plugged into the other 2. So this is again a series, just like we did with the alligator clips. And It's not like what we did in parallel. So I've now got a 27-volt battery ready to go. I can take this thing apart when I'm done using it. And I've got standard alligator clips here, metal alligator clips. You can touch the end of these and you might feel a little tiny bit of current, but 27 volts isn't going to kill you. So it's fairly safe to use. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect one of the wires, the alligator clips over here, to this lead of the battery. I'll turn it this way so you can see it. Okay, see that? I've got it hooked up right there and clipping it on. And then I'm going to take this one and clip it over here to the other lead. And if it doesn't slip off, because that doesn't have as much to grab onto. So there, they're both connected. And we'll try to take that out. And as you can see, you see by the sparking, there's 27 volts of power right there. And it's, of course, scoring that, which is easy to clean off. Now, I'm going to take these specific wires, silver wires, were used in one of my Beck units, so it's got these little plugs in the end. But this is from an older model, and it doesn't plug in. I could just cut it and use it, but I left it on here because if I ever want to make colloidal silver using this configuration, these particular ones are still perfect for that. So the wire doesn't go to waste. So I'm just going to, attach the wire there. If this little plate wasn't there, you could just, clip it on there, and it's going to conduct the current just fine. And then I'm going to put the other one. Let's put that down. I put the other one over here. There we go. And now you have a complete circuit. We've got a 27-volt battery. We've got 4 alligator clips. We've got about 12 to 10 gauge stranded wire, copper wire, clipped onto two pure, not too pure, but pure silver wires ready to make colloidal silver. And I'm going to move now to the kitchen counter and show you how that works. Kitchen countertop in my home, and I've got a 15-ounce glass here. You can use 16 ounces if you want to do this. 8 ounces is fine too. I'll give you the times you need to make the silver, the amount of time you need. And I've got my little simple circuit here with my 3 9-volt batteries making a 27-volt battery. I've got my alligator clips all hooked up. Now, the first thing you're probably going to want to know is, what kind of water should I use, Kevin? Well, there's 2 different ways you can do this. You can use tap water if you want. Just make sure it's filtered through a fairly decent filter, or if you have reverse osmosis in your home, you have that as a service, you can use that too. If you're going to use distilled water, then it takes a few hours to make any amount of colloidal silver, and then it has to be yellow gold when it's produced, and you'll need a little bit of the catalyst, and usually a little bit of sea salt is a good enough catalyst to get the process started, or a little leftover silver you might have made previously, colloidal silver water that you made as a catalyst to get the distilled water process going. When I was sick and my doctors told me to go home and die, I didn't have time to do all of that. I was way too far gone, so I just used filtered tap water. And I drank hundreds of gallons of colloidal silver. And even though it goes a little misty when you use the colloidal silver in the tap water, that's a result of the chlorine that's in it. So you get a little bit of silver chloride that's produced, but it's not really going to hurt you too much. If you're squeamish about that, then go the distilled water method. And do it that way. But I drank a lot of it, and if anything, it did me more good than harm, because I was in an emergency situation. I had to fight, and I went through years of going through prolonged detox and die-off, as it's called, the healing crisis, or commonly known as the Herxheimer reaction. And Julius Herxheimer was the guy that when he was working with people who had syphilis and getting them well, he had this reaction that they would have, and they called it the Herxheimer reaction. The problem is with the process that I describe in my work is it may take you a few years, if you're too far gone into the third stage of the thing, to really clean your body up and unadulterate it. The adulteration of the body is covered in the Bible. It is not understood at all by the Christian church. They all think it has to do with sex, and it has nothing to do with sex. Adultery really has nothing to do with sex from the Hebrew. It has to do with the pollution of the body. From the French word adultère, we get the word adulteration or adultery. Adultery refers to sexual indiscretion, and adulteration refers to the pollution of the body. Well, the deadly sin that God was talking about when he said don't commit adultery was not the one dealing with sex. It had to do with the polluting of the body. And when you understand that the kings back then could have numerous wives, you have to ask yourself the question, how could they be committing adultery if they had more than one wife? Unless the word meant something else, and it did. And when you read the Old Testament, you learn you could have as many wives as you wanted as long as you never divorced them and you took care of every one of them. That's in Exodus. And the church doesn't teach any of this anymore. The Mormons believe in it. It's in their book. It's in the Bible. But the standard method today is one woman, one man, and unless if you're going to have another, you got to go through divorce through the state, or wherever you live, whatever country you live. You got to go through all this legal stuff because it makes money, and then you're free to go ahead and remarry. It's a bunch of hoopla to me that doesn't make any sense because people are going to do whatever they're going to do. But know this: adulteration has to do with the polluting of the body. It is what the Bible was talking about. This is the process that I identify in my work. This method will help to unadulterate the process that starts in the body. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do is put some water into this glass. Okay, I've got a pure water filter attached to this sink of mine. I like pure because when I tested all the ones that are out there, pure doesn't change the pH of the water. It keeps it pretty much whatever it is that's coming in from the city. And it also cleans out chlorine and other contaminants. Okay, we've got our tap water here, and that takes out a lot of the chlorine, actually. There's some left in there, and it also helps kill cryptosporidium, which is a parasite, and a few other things that might be in the city tap water most of you aren't aware of that can get into your tap water. Now, all I'm going to do, since this is already active and there's no switch by which to turn this on, is I'm going to just drop these in here and make sure they don't touch each other. You want to keep them separate inside the water. Okay, what you see happening is the silver particles are coming off of the silver wire from the 27 volts that is exchanging between the silver wires through the water. And you can't really use less than 27 volts. It slows the process down. I haven't tried it because all the documentation I've read says 27 volts. But maybe one day I'll give it a shot and see what 9 volts does. But I think it'll probably do it. But it doesn't conduct as well through the water, and as you can see, it's getting misty in there. Now that's the chlorine content of the water that is causing the misty effect. And but still, the silver particles are negatively charged. They're Ag negative, they are not Ag positive, and when you drink that, in spite of even a little bit of chlorine that's in there, they will repel against the cell membrane, but they will be ingested by every anaerobic pathogen. That's anaerobic means any pathogen or disease that can live in the body where oxygen is deficient throughout the system. Acidosis, you'll find in the body when the pH drops throughout the body fluids, is is something that really keeps electron flow from moving throughout the body. The body will keep the blood as alkaline as it can and rob your body of everything else to the point of creating osteoporosis just to keep the blood going. And the blood is always the last thing to go usually when the body becomes acidic and into the adulterous process that I talk about in my work. Now, it's just about almost 3 minutes, and that's all you really need. If you buy the Beck unit, they'll usually tell you about 15 minutes because they're using a more slowed down circuit that produces the silver. But if you use this pure method, 3 minutes is enough to give you about 5 to 10 parts per million, which is the effective dosage you need to try to do a number on any form of pathogen that's in your system. Now, you'll find that silver will not affect streptococcus, which you can get in your throat like a sore throat, and it will not affect staphylococcus bacteria. You'll need a standard antibiotic to do that, which your Western doctors can provide. Just know that if you take antibiotics orally, they're going to mess up the flora of your GI tract and kill your friendly bacteria. Better to get an injection of antibiotics than to take them orally, because once you mess up your GI tract, you start the first stage of what I call the CDS-PD process. And it's a pretty interesting process when you fully know how it all works. Okay, I'm going to take these out because we're there. And you can see how cloudy that is. And it doesn't have much taste to it. Got a little bit of metallic taste to it, that's normal. It tastes just like water. Should, but it's got all that silver in it. Now, you can drink as much silver as you want in a given day, but I've learned through people I've worked with and helped that those who are very far into the adulterous process of what I call CDS-PD and other doctors are calling fibromyalgia or the chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever you want to call it, the process is interesting in the sense that if you are very far into it and you're in what I call a precancerous state, you have to start with dosages that are very low. And you have to do that with all the holistic methods and approaches. The reason why is as you start to help the body release its toxic load, the release can really be horrendous on the body, and you go through all these horrible symptoms. And you may have to endure this for a few years to finally get all the way out of it. I had to go through almost 3 years of prickliness and burning in my body, loose stools all the time, vomiting, throwing up, cramps and pains in my liver, all kinds of stuff. And a lot of people would run away from that, but that would be the wrong thing to do, because what you don't realize is you are going through the doorway out. And if you don't endure all of that using the alternatives, you will fail and you will die. So this is one of the reasons why people who use the alternatives say they don't work. They expect a quick fix, and in real time it doesn't work that way. I've learned through a lifetime that the things that are the most worthwhile in life take the greatest amount of effort and patience to get the results that are needed, no matter what you're trying to achieve in life, whether you're building a family, building a business, or fighting to get your health back. Now, I foresee a machine that can be developed one day that will flood the body with light. I call it an MREC, a mild radiant electron cascade. I got the idea watching what was happening at Benny Hinn's and watching people who were getting healed. All of them kept saying, I feel tingling like electricity going through my body. And I said, what the hell is that? So I prayed to our Lord and I said, could you show me what you're doing with these people? Because I know you're there. I've been dead twice. I've met you. And our Lord, spoke to my heart, and He said, yeah, I will. Just keep walking the path you're on, and I'll show you how it works. Just write it all down as you go along. So I've done that. And I have my first manuscript in the Copyright Office recorded. So everyone knows that I thought the thing through first. So there are others who are behind me on this, about 10 or 20 years, who will eventually catch up, I suspect. I have an odd gift. I have like an H.G. Wells type of gift where I can see 20, 40 years down the future. And I don't know why God gave it to me, but I have it. And I'm always ahead of everyone else, but I'm not always in a position to do anything about it. Well, we got YouTube, so this is the best I can do to try to reach some of you who are lost and are confused and need answers. And I'm only doing that because I love all of you, and I know what you've been through. But I would ask your support. I'm struggling myself from the expense of all of this. So if you find my YouTube channel and see some of my products, buy some of the stuff. They're great, wholesome family entertainment things that I've created through the years. And it will help keep me going and allow me to do more things like this to help all of you learn from me. What it took 18 years, and it ruined my family line. It ruined my cousin, who was my caregiver, and my brother gave up his inheritance to try to save my life. And everyone struggled and suffered. And the problem is, folks, there's no free lunch in life. And if you want me to help you, I'm going to need your support. I know how this thing works. But if it's not worth you putting value on what I'm doing, I can understand that. I'll shut the YouTube channel down, and I will take the knowledge to my grave. And when I faced our Lord again in death, I'll say, I'm sorry, they didn't want it. And I needed the support. And that's what it's about. We have to help each other with this. So anyway, this is poor man's colloidal silver. It costs you nothing more than what's going to cost you to buy 3 9-volt batteries, some alligator clips, and some pure copper wire, and some silver wire you can usually get at a foundry or jewelry shop. And you only need it in here for about 3 minutes to make about 16 ounces. Maybe a little less time to make 8 ounces. And then, you know, take it very slowly. When I first started, I started with about 16 ounces a day, which I drank throughout the day. And I kept it in a peroxide bottle to keep light out of it so sunlight wouldn't affect the electron load. And just that little bit each day was horrendous, because I had a lot of toxic load in my body. And very slowly, which took about 2 or 3 years, I raised it up to where I finally got up to 1 gallon a day. When I finally hit that gallon a day, I started passing flukes, liver flukes, and 2 other kinds of worms and their eggs out of my system, which was brutal to go through for me, because the darn creatures had torn up my rear end, which they do because they have incisor teeth. The normal course of their gestation is they travel from the liver down to the rectal opening to lay their eggs while you're sleeping. This is something our great-grandparents knew, and it's in the medical books. But my doctors didn't catch it. And unfortunately, with those incisor teeth, they chew up your rear end over a good enough period of time. I had to have extensive hemorrhoid surgery done, and the nerve damage is permanent. And I have to baby that area. And I got to tell you, it's no fun to be my age and have that. And I have to deal with it till the day I die. I'm not the only one with this kind of problem. I've met colon therapists who see it all the time. They see the damage and they see the worms come out of people's bodies. And doctors these days think you don't get worms. That's how egotistical they are. They think that man is not a member of the animal kingdom anymore. The last time I checked a high school biology book, it says we're animals and we're part of the animal kingdom. But that shows you how haughty they are in their pride and their egos, and instead of admitting in humility, which I am humble all the time, that's how I learned as much as I did, that they don't know, or you know, these are the facts of life, that we're animals and we get the things our dogs, cats, horses, cows, birds get, and instead of dealing with it, they don't. They have all their high-tech toys, and they have too much brain power and not enough common sense, and it's killing people, is what it's doing. So anyway, 3 minutes for this, 2 hours if it's distilled, usually about 2 hours. Make sure it's like golden yellow. I call it pea yellow. You know, if it's as yellow as your urine, then you're probably there. You're at the right consistency of 5 to 10 parts per million. Now the difference between the two is this is put in a peroxide bottle. This will last about 3 weeks before it falls apart. If you use distilled water, it can last months. You can store it and make it last and have it there. You can do a gallon of it at a time and have it ready for yourself whenever you need it. And that's it. Poor man's colloidal silver, using 3 9-volt batteries, 4 alligator clips, and the stranded wire, 10 to 12 gauge with silver, a pure silver wire, and we'll leave out the partridge in a pear tree, even though I'm making this pretty darn close to Christmas of 2011. Thanks again for joining me here at the Astro Boy 9 channel. I gave you a lot of information. I hope you enjoyed it. You can always watch it again and make notes. And I'll see you next time. I'm Kevin F. Montague.